Do you dream of seamlessly balancing motherhood and career ambitions, but find that in reality, the juggle feels overwhelming? If so, you are not alone. But in this episode, we're talking about the art of mastering both realms with our guest, Chelsea Goodson. She's a dynamic mom of two young boys who also helps so many creators pursue their passions. So today, we're going to leave you with the inspiration and tools to support you as you pursue your passion. Thank you so much for pressing play today. Thank you for being here, for sharing this podcast with others, and for letting us know what it means to you, because all of that means the world to me. So friends, let's light up this world together. I am here today with Chelsea Goodson. She is the head of creator economy at Find Your Influence, which enables brands to manage digital influencer campaigns. And I've actually worked with her for years now. I don't even know how many, but it's been a while. And she's had over a decade of experience in influencer marketing and in digital media. She's seen the growth of this whole online creator world and how it's become like this mass inclusion in almost all digital media today. But what I love about her also is she's a fellow mama. She is raising her boys with her husband in Arizona, and I am really excited about this conversation today. So Chelsea, thank you for being here on the podcast today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe what you do, or even how you've stepped into this role that it seems like it's something that you love to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm born and raised Arizonian. I grew up just outside of Phoenix, Arizona. I went to ASU. I got a degree in journalism. And at that point, knew that I wanted to be within the world of marketing, but more so influence when it wasn't really influencer focused. So this was the early, not even the 2010s, before then. And I had a blog. I've been writing online since I was a teenager. This is early 2000s, so the Zanga and LiveJournal days. And when I was in college, I always had a blog. I would show off my outfits. I would share what I was doing every day. I met my husband at 18 and we kind of just, grew up together. So we would share our adventures, what we were doing. And then when I was getting ready to graduate, I did decide to go get my master's. So I stayed a little bit longer while my husband was still finishing school. We weren't married at the time, but decided to keep going and was realizing, you know what? I feel like magazines and newspapers, while they're wonderful, they're just not moving as quickly as I wanted them to. Mm-hmm. And just how, already being in the space where I could write something and publish it online within minutes, it just felt like, the world is moving that way. And that's where I want to be. So I kept going to school, eventually got engaged and graduated my master's and went on to work in advertising, but with a focus in influencer marketing. So this was in 2013. And I worked for an advertising agency doing social media for a large grocery store chain. And we were working with influencers on different activations as well. And then ended up getting married, followed my career to a couple other advertising agencies, and then, kept blogging this whole time, was very well versed within kind of the style blogging era of the 2010s. And then I was introduced to one of our female co-founders here at FYI. Her name is Christine Vieira. We have a mutual friend. Another piece about me is that I'm really big into coffee. I met my husband in a coffee shop, and it's always just been something that's a part of me. So
I'm with you there.
Yeah, it's a necessity, certainly. Mm-hmm. But Christine and I had a mutual friend who had opened a coffee shop in the city where I live, and she said, you know what, I want to introduce you to, and she's doing influencing, you're doing it as well. I think it would be a great match. And I walked into this, just seemingly coffee shop date, going into it, meeting someone new, and I walked away with a job opportunity, which was incredible. So Find Your Influence was just about a year old. And as you mentioned, we do influencer marketing. So at that point, I joined the team in doing social media. And then that was over 9 years ago. So I've been really lucky to be a part of the team and the community at FYI and seeing it grow from, influencing was very different back then, and it's changed a lot and ebbed and flowed as the whole world has. And so have I along the way. I've had two little boys. I have a 5-year-old and an 8-month-old baby, and I've been just able to grow my family alongside of it. Like I mentioned, we've got two amazing female co-founders who have really championed me along the way in becoming a mother, and they are mother themselves. And it's been just wonderful to learn from them in so many different ways and to have that support
Mhm.
system within, not only my personal life with my friends, my family, but also my work life too. So yeah, that's now we're here today and just moving along as we always have and feeling very
Mhm.
blessed to be where we are and to see my boys grow. And, we live in a wonderful sunny place, a little bit hot, but a great place. And I just feel like I'm in a season in life now where it's really exciting. There's a lot of great things happening.
Yes, there really is. Well, and even then, I like that word that you said just a moment ago about support. And I think that that's something that's really important because I know even just feedback we've had with a lot of listeners goes both sides of it with raising a family and building business, and also just kind of the question of I'm not sure what I should be doing or my next steps, that uncertainty. And I feel like having support in those ventures,
Hmm.
when we feel supported, it's almost like this, it's easier to take that step or it's easier to take that risk or that leap. And I think kind of the fear of taking the leap is what keeps us in this. I'm uncertain of what my next step should be, or I'm uncertain of
Right.
these things, or even just feeling the struggle of balancing both.
Right.
And I think that's a huge part of it. And so I love that you even brought up that word. You're feeling that at work, but is that something that you feel is important for moms to find or build or find ways to build that in? Like, what do they do if they feel like they don't have that at home?
Yeah, that's a great question. And again, I feel very blessed in that I'm fortunate to have that support, but recognize that it can take time and it can be situational. I'm lucky in that
Mm.
my husband runs his own business. That wasn't something I guess I shared earlier, but my husband runs his own business, woodworking, and we balance that between both of us working full time. But we also live closer to both of our families and, have friends around for support when needed. But I do think it's so important to have those relationships in which you can rely on, your village. Everyone talks about your village, and it's so
Mhm.
true. But I also realize it can be very hard, especially as, an adult female. It can be hard to make friendships easily. And I
Yeah.
always encourage others to find a space that feels very neutral in what you're doing. Find a place where you can meet mothers who maybe have children your own age or who might be in that next step of life so that they're able to offer you advice, perhaps even support. I do
Mhm.
think it's really important because if you are lacking that support, like you mentioned, I think there can be a lot of fear and imbalance in what you're doing to continue, your path forward, whether that's a career, even if you're a full-time stay-at-home mom, that is a huge job. And I recognize that, just moving forward in your next phase, your next chapter, I mean, your children are only one age for a certain amount of time. It's necessary to have that support so that you're able to be in the moment, learn, move forward and walk through and start the next. And I would just encourage anyone who's looking for that support to reach out to those in your area. There are so many different groups. While I know it can be a bit scary sometimes, but different groups
Right.
on social channels or even in your community, family, friends, whoever you can. It's so important to have those individuals in your life who are going to be able to offer you support. And that's not always in a way of physical, just could be in talking you through something.
Mhm.
There's such importance in that as well. And again, I encourage anyone who's in those early stages, especially, to reach out and know that you're not alone. We're all walking through this together and we're all trying to figure it out. And there have been many women who have gone before us before who have, walked through this, and they are here now to offer us that layer of support that we need to take that next step forward.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes that's huge. And sometimes we
Yeah.
don't even realize it, but that's actually what we needed. I know that there's
Right.
been times where I might not have wanted to go to something or to meet with someone.
Yeah.
And then when I leave, I'm realizing, okay, yeah, I really needed that. That really
Right.
encouraged me. Or now I'm ready to take the leap, or I'm ready to just keep going because I was feeling tired and overwhelmed and burnt out. And so sometimes having those connections, and I think it's important to foster those connections. I mean, even thinking about it, the job that you're at right now, the thing that you're doing that you love to do
Yeah.
came because of a connection. It came because of a connection
Right.
with someone that brought you a connection with someone else. And so
Yeah.
what if you hadn't fostered that friendship or that relationship? Or what if
Right.
you had said, I don't want to meet someone new right now. That's a little awkward. So,
Yes.
I'm not going to. So I think that that's awesome. That's actually a really good insight in that of just, okay, sometimes we need to get out of our bubble
Yeah.
or even get out of our own way and let other people pull us up a little bit. Uh, I know
Absolutely.
that you've worked closely with a lot of for the last decade, you've been working with different influencers and creators
Yeah.
and in these different spaces. And so I feel like you maybe have seen a little bit, almost, I guess you could say, behind the scenes, especially doing it yourself for so long and then working with others and then working with these big brands on campaigns, but still managing and working with the creators.
Right.
So you've seen probably the good and the bad,
Sure.
on both sides of it. And so is there anything that you can share with us, maybe that you've seen that's stuck with you? It could go both ways. Like either, okay, that was awesome. That was a power move. That is something I want to apply to my own life.
Yeah.
Or this is something I want to make sure that I avoid doing or having happen in my own life from seeing it play out kind of in front of
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I've actually been thinking about this recently as I have a team that I work really closely with, and I'm really lucky to get to manage a few individuals who have loved seeing their growth. And for me, it's really important to allow opportunities for them to learn and to apply these actions into their own working styles, their everyday life as well. Because again, my goal is to, bring up others, whether it's in
Mhm.
motherhood or in business. But from the creator front, I mean, my biggest win when I'm getting to work with a creator is that they are sound small, but responsive and authentic. I love when someone is quick to respond and says, "Hey, this sounds like a great fit." Or even if they say to me, "Hey, I'm not sure we're quite seeing eye to eye on this. I'd love to explore this further. Let's have a conversation about it." I would love nothing more to always ensure that a creator is feeling very authentic in the content that they're creating. I know that word is thrown around a lot, I feel like, but it's so true. You follow your favorite individuals because you love who they
Mhm.
are and you love what they're doing day to day. And sometimes that can get a little tricky with brand partnerships in creating content that might feel not necessarily off, but maybe just be a little bit different than what they usually share. So I always like finding a way that we can partner with a creator that shows off not only the brand or the product, but also who the influencer really is. So on the flip side, I do find that it's been difficult in the past to work with creators who may take days to respond or who also, may not be as open to a conversation of what the creative could look like or what they're envisioning. I love for this to be a partnership. And that's always really important to us here at FYI that we're partnering together to collaborate on a piece of content. It doesn't, it's not meant to be something that the brand says, "Hey, this is what I want and I need you to do this, that, and the other." I really want to
Yeah.
make sure that it's a conversation and that it does fit who you are. I mean, ultimately, the brand is coming to you because they like what you're doing. So we want to have something created that speaks to who you are at your core, but
Mhm.
also kind of integrate these other pieces that we're wanting to explore. So again, very small, but response time I think is huge. And then authenticity and really showing who you are. I always tell creators, don't ever, be afraid of that piece. Brands are so open and they want you to express yourself in a way that feels very you. I think we're talking about kind of fear earlier. I think there can be a lot of fear
Yeah.
in potentially creating something that maybe feels a little off brand to or off brand to the partner that you're working with. But I think there's such an easy way to combat that and just have a conversation about it. And really, those are the most successful collaborations and campaigns that we see when it's really collaborative effort between the brand, the influencer, and then us kind of being there to support in between.
That's good. I think that's really good how that can play out in life in so many different ways.
Yeah,
Just
absolutely.
that being upfront and communicative.
Mhm.
And even how we were just talking about in relationships, really in general, how that can play out in our life, developing a practice of that, of
Right.
being responsive, even if the answer is no, or even
Right.
if there needs to be a shift or a change or, a boundary or something talked through. And I
Right.
think that's where, again, that fear can come up because a lot of times there are things we don't want to say because we don't want to hurt someone's feelings or we want to avoid conflict, but really being able to just come forward with, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I need to express, really is kind of showing that authenticity, I think. And
Yeah.
in business relationships and in personal relationships in the home, like it can apply in all of those areas, really. And so I think that's good. And even talking about home, what are some of the ways that you found? Because I know, like you said, you and your husband both work full time. There's all these things that you're managing, and yet you're raising little ones, which I love. That's what I'm doing too. We have a house full of kiddos as well. So what are some things that you found to be helpful in like maintaining that healthy balance? Where is my focus? Where does it need to be right now? Or, can you share any strategies or techniques with us that you have found
Yeah.
helpful for you?
Absolutely. Well, I know that I'm coming in sounding like a broken record, but I think it's very true in that mothers, all individuals really, but mothers, you need to have something for yourself. You need to have time for yourself. So I always try and prioritize, it doesn't need to be every day, but every week in having just some moments for myself, whether that's for a hobby. I do pottery on the side just for fun. I sell jewelry. I explore a lot of different avenues along with my influencing. So I try and keep that in the back of mind where, I would like to spend a little bit of time each week in doing this. And then I kind of backtrack and say, okay, I know my Monday through Friday during the workday is dedicated to my work. And my husband, I'm very grateful. He's a bit more flexible in his schedule. So he's with our kids during the day. My son, my older one, is in school, and my younger one obviously is at home with us. So we rely on our village along with him to watch our little one every day. But we also recognize that there needs to be a balance, and he has work he needs to do as well. And we try and figure that out, whether it's nights, weekends, whatever it is. We're very communicative, in terms of, this is where, I'm at, this is what I'm needing, this is the time that I need. We try and make sure that's an open conversation. And then, leaning into our resources when we can and making sure that we're each getting time to focus on not only our own work, but also things that bring us joy, that allow us to kind of take a moment for ourselves. So again, each week I'm prioritizing my work during the week, and then I'm finding pockets of time to spend elsewhere for myself, along with, everyday kid and baby life. My little one is still in the very early stages. So I'm just, exploring those first few new things, getting ready to crawl, first few teeth, things like that. So I'm also very aware of how quickly the time is going. So I would say in this season of life right now, I'm probably leaning in a little bit more to the just being in motherhood while having a little bit of time for myself. And I'm okay with that because it ebbs and flows. And I think sometimes when you're stressed about balance, it feels like you may never kind of get out of this continuing circle, but there certainly are seasons. My older son is 4 years older than my younger son. So we went through a whole, infant, baby, toddler, kind of into kiddo land with him before my younger one was brought into the world. And for him, I got to really see what that looked like. I mean, there were so many times in the early days where I was like, oh my goodness, this is going to be tough for so many days, weeks, years. And then you get through it. You lean on your support system. You kind of go day to day, and then you figure out, okay, things will change. My child is going to grow. He's going to find his own interests. He's going to become a little bit more independent, and play and other things around the home. And I think even just that stage gives you a bit more balance. But otherwise, for me, it's so important to find those pockets of time and know that, my time for even bigger pockets will come in the future. And for now, I'm going to focus on, my work, my husband, and trying to work together to find that balance for him to work as well, and what that looks like, whether it's, having support in terms of childcare or getting me and the two little ones out on the weekends fully so he can take the time at home to focus and get done what he needs to. And then just kind of trying to find those other moments in between.
Yeah, I like a few of the things, like how you brought in a few of the things, even that we've already talked about support. Like it's
Yeah.
important to find the right support that you need. And even going back to like communicating and sharing and being
Right.
upfront about what it is that you need. And even for your husband, what it is that he needs. And for your
Right.
work, what it is that I need for this or what they need. I think a lot of times we can feel guilty because we're trying to balance all of these things, but not necessarily being honest with ourselves or those around us of this is what I need. This is,
Right.
this is the time and space that I need, but also maybe this is the help and the support that I need, and
Yeah.
being honest with ourselves so that we can look for that and find ways to fill in with that support. And then I also love how you mentioned seasons too. I think that that's so important because I know that I've had different times when I feel almost like behind in like for like this part of my career or this thing. And then I
Right.
realized, but I'm in a season of raising little ones that I love, that I wouldn't
Yeah.
trade for anything. And so sometimes we can get into that whole thing of comparison. Like I'll compare myself to this person, but maybe
Mhm.
this person that I'm looking at isn't raising a family at the moment, but
Right.
they're really building their career, which is amazing. But then for me to compare just this career side of it and
Yeah.
not the whole picture, all of us are in different seasons and in different stages. I think I think it was a podcast recently I had my husband was on, and we were talking about like to some I could look like I'm doing so many things. And then to others, it could look like, who are doing this in their career, it could look like, well, what is she doing? And it just
Yeah.
depends on what season you're in, what way you're looking from, And so when we're in it, realizing what season am I in right now? Where are my priorities right now? So that I can focus on those things. And it's going to look different than anyone else. But also
Right.
that kind of goes back to that authenticity thing. Like it is really easy to get caught up in that. I need to be doing this. I should be doing this. But is
Right.
this thing, is it right for me? Or is it just kind of like those things I'm putting on myself because I think I should?
Right. Yeah. And I think as mothers, we feel a lot of that pressure to do a lot of things, take our kids to the zoo every month or make sure that we have play dates every weekend. There are a lot of things that I think society has kind of put on us in this ideal sense that we should be doing. And really those things are great. And my kids love going to the zoo. They love having play dates, but it kind of comes in waves again. It just depends on what you're able to do for you and your family at that time. And if you're not able to do those things, there shouldn't be any guilt in saying, that's just not for us right now. We're going to focus our time elsewhere. There's so many other things that are a bit less, I guess, pressure focused on myself that I can do for them that feel equally as joyful as the things that society says, oh, you should be doing this for your children. You should be taking them to these places or allowing them to have these experiences. They certainly will, but it all comes in time.
Yeah, I think that's so good. Just looking at it with that different lens, really.
Right.
And like you said, it's just, we can live our lives joyfully and joy filled in whatever stage or whatever season that is. And I really think that that's a key, what you just said, to fighting that mom guilt, which I think is huge. I don't know of any mother that said that they haven't had guilt at some point in some way.
Sure.
And really, I think, like you said, it kind of stems back to some of the things that society says or culture says, or even our own maybe family history or upbringing says, or just the things that we feel or put on ourselves, the things we see online, and it becomes these shoulds. But just like you said, what's right for my family? And I think really getting clear on that is important.
Yeah.
Like what are our family values, getting clear on what, where does our family find joy? And if that's right for us, that's right for us. We don't have to defend it or redefine those things based on what society says.
Absolutely. Right.
It's important to take the time to think a little bit in that way, like our own family values or even more of long-term thinking. I feel like it's really easy to get caught up, and because I'm that way too, I think a lot of us can be that way where we make ourselves so busy that we can't like rest ourselves from this present moment to allow ourselves to think of like what I want for my family or even more long-term thinking. And so like out of trying to occupy myself or even bolster self-worth, or just out of being a creature of habit and scrolling or whatever it is that we fill our time with, we end up filling our time instead of with like these present moments. And even like we were just mentioning, things that we feel like we should be doing, instead of just giving ourselves kind of almost that rest or that break to say, what's important? Where should I put my focus in pursuing my passions? Where should I put my focus in my family? And it doesn't take more time to think that way. It just takes us allowing ourselves some time to think that way.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Instead of like putting out fires all the time. I know that I've been in seasons where it feels like that. And then I finally get to the place where I'm like, okay, pull it all back. Let's say no to everything for a minute until we find out what aligns. What's aligning with our family values right now? What's aligning with my career goals right now? Because it's been too much, all over the place.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I can definitely speak for that fire season where it feels like there is just so much going on. And, it's definitely a blessing and a privilege to take time and to step back and say, what do I want? What works for my family and I? But it's very important, I think, in order to kind of secure your path for the future and know what really, means the most to you and put you in a place where you're going to be, I wouldn't call them goals, but you're meeting things that you would like to do for you and your family, as the days, months, years go on. I think we all have an idea of what we want our life to look like. I think not everyone, but many of us dream from a young age what that might look like. And, that doesn't come, I think, without a little bit of hard work and time to decide, how do I really want it to look like? And what are the paths and the stepping stones that I'm going to take to really get me there, whether that's in your career, in motherhood, friendships, anything like that.
Yeah. But it's important to know it, or else we're just kind of like stuck almost, or in this cycle of like just spinning our wheels. And then the steps that we're taking don't really take us anywhere, which isn't where we want to be. Yeah.
Right.
I think that's so good. It's just that the clarity. I think some of the things that you've brought up today have been great about just, for one, I think being clear on kind of our own, like you just mentioned, path or some of the places we want to go, because from that, we're able to be more clear in our communication with others, with other, like we said, business relationships and personal relationships, which, like you mentioned, moves the needle in both in tremendous ways. And then also looking at, now that I know kind of where I'm wanting to go, what support system can help me get there? And what does that look like? And start to build that out. And I think that's really helpful. I think for moms in general, also anyone that maybe they don't have kids that's looking to build their career. And then, of course, both together for sure. The way to go. But
absolutely.
But I just want to say thank you for joining us today. I think it's been really helpful. Some really good takeaways for everyone that's listening. And so, Chelsea, thanks for being here.
Yes, thank you for having me, Tabitha. It was wonderful to get to connect with you in this way. And I appreciate you letting me share a little bit more about my story and kind of my journey through, motherhood, professional life, and all the areas in between.
I think so many can relate. So I appreciate you sharing it. Have a good one.
Thank you. You too.